Are you obsessed with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni situation? Many of us are. And today I want to talk to you about something a little bit different. I want to talk to you about what you can learn from these barrage of lawsuits about how you can be more persuasive and influential in your life. My name is Heather Hansen. For 25 years, I was a trial attorney and I defended doctors in medical malpractice cases. Then I wrote some books. I started a keynote speaking business, and I teach people how to use the tools that we use in the courtroom to be more influential and persuasive in their lives outside of the courtroom. And today I am going to share with you what you can learn from these lawsuits that are going back and forth that will help you to become more persuasive and influential when you are asking for what you want. So the first thing when you're teaching someone to advocate, which is what we're talking about, the first thing you want to know is what's a win? What do you actually want? Because that will impact what we ask for and how we ask for it. And here, the first question that I have is, what did Blake and her team want? They filed their first complaint with the California Civil Rights Department, the CRD, as they were supposed to do, because that's the process for a sexual harassment claim. You file it there, and then you can bring it into a lawsuit. They filed it there. The question is, did they actually want to pursue a lawsuit, or did they want the public to know what they knew about Justin, what they had to say about Justin? Was this a situation where what they wanted, a win for them, would be to change the public perception, or is a win to actually go to court, take it to trial, do depositions, have everybody be deposed, including friends like Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds, and ultimately sit in a witness stand, turn to a jury, and make their case? Which do they actually want? There's a strong argument to be made that what they really wanted was to change the public perception, but we can't speak for them. We don't know, but it's important to know what a win is so that you know who your jury is. Because if what they wanted was to ultimately get into a courtroom now in New York City, because that's where the case is now pending, the initial filing was in California. If they ultimately wanted to get into that courtroom, they need patience. They're going to need to put their case together a little bit differently than if what they wanted was to impact the public perception. And the juries are very different. Your jury is anyone who can give you your win. So if you are out there in your world and you want a raise, your jury is your boss. If you want support for something that you want to do, your jury is your friends, your family, or investors, maybe. If you want your partner to do the laundry, your jury is your partner. If you want your colleagues to help you with the slide deck, your jury is your colleagues. Your jury is the people who can give you what you want. So if Blake and her team wanted to change the public perception of Justin, the jury is the public at large. If she wants to have a jury in the courtroom give her money, the jury is going to be those 12 people sitting in a jury box in a few years. Very different juries, very different process to influence and persuade them. You've got to know your jury. And then we can think about Justin as well. Justin then filed his complaint against the New York Times, and he filed his complaint against Blake, counterclaim against Blake, and many other people are involved in these cases as well. It seems pretty clear that Justin perhaps wants that jury in the courtroom, especially in the New York Times case, to make up for perhaps some monetary losses. And it's very clear to me that he and his attorney Friedman are doing their best to influence the jury of public opinion as well. One of the ways that they've done this very effectively is having a website with all of the evidence, or not all of the evidence, but the evidence that they want to share there on that website. That is to impact the jury of public opinion. Good lawyers are supposed to do that. We're supposed to be advocating for our clients at all times. We're supposed to be impacting and persuading and doing our best to get our client justice. And so that is likely what Justin is doing. The reason it's so important to know your jury, whether it's those 12 people sitting in a jury box in a few years or the jury of public opinion, is that you can't change someone's perspective until you know it. So for those of you that are advocating for money or time or resources, you have to know, who is my jury? Who will give me my win? What do I want and who can give it to me? And sometimes it's a series of people. Sometimes you need to get help at home so that you can spend more time at work, so that you can get your boss to tell your other boss that you deserve a raise. Sometimes there's multiple juries. For Blake and Justin, there are certainly multiple juries. There are newscasters, there are social media influencers, there are other kinds of influencers. These are all different jury members, but you can't influence their perspective until you understand their perspective. And this is where it may be that Blake's team is struggling a little bit. In paragraph 48 of her amended complaint, they talk about, this is a text message between Justin and someone on his team. And I think it's Justin, it's unclear on the text message, but someone says, I just know her personality, speaking about Blake. And this is the kind of person that genuinely believes she's right and that all of this is unjust. And then the other person says she fully does. That's a problem when you're trying to become a strong advocate, because if you can't see where you might be wrong and where you can't see where the other side might be just, it's very difficult to win. My clients, I defended doctors in medical malpractice cases, they would sometimes call me Chicken Little, because I was always looking for, where could we lose? Where is the problem? What's another perspective that hurts us? How could people see this differently? What are we missing? My clients didn't always love that until we won, because I was ready for everything. I addressed everything. And if you're unwilling or unable, and they say genuinely believes that she's right and that all of this is unjust, if you can't see where you might be wrong and where things might be just, it's going to be much more difficult for you to speak to the perspective that might see things differently. The other thing that's hard is that power makes us worse at this. There's a 2017 Atlantic article that I think about a lot that says power causes brain damage. And they talk about, as we become more powerful as a species, powerful people tend to become less good at empathy. And in fact, there's an argument to be made that a part of the brain that is responsible for empathy actually shrinks as we become more powerful. And this makes sense, because when you're in power, you don't need to be so worried about what other people see or feel or think or believe. But it is not helpful when you are out there advocating for yourself. If you are unable to see the world through other people's eyes, you can't speak to the things that they may be seeing that you might be missing. And that's a big problem for either side if you get into that place. And it's a problem for you if you want to advocate for yourself. Be sure to get creative and humble enough and have enough empathy to see things through other perspectives. What's the perspective of my boss, of my boss's boss, of the people that I lead, of my colleagues who I would like to get to help me with my deck, of my partner who I would like to have help me with my laundry? How do they see the world? How could they see that my request, my position, my beliefs are wrong? When you know that, you have a much better chance of addressing it. And it may be that that's getting in the way in this particular case. And then once you know your jury, you get to the point where you get to share your stories, your evidence, and your energy of belief. I'm going to do other videos on those specifically because they're really a deep dive into each one of these. But the story that you tell has to be a story that resonates with your jury. That's why you need to know the jury and see things from their perspective. And then you need evidence to support that story. In Blake's amended complaint, she sort of tells a different story. She leads the complaint talking about Justin's TED Talk and some quotes from his TED Talks. And it's a story of, these are my words, they're telling a story of a hypocrite. Someone who goes out there and is all about feminism and is all about trying to boost women and listen to women. And then according to the allegations in the complaint, Justin didn't actually do that. So the story they're trying to tell is this disconnect between what he is saying on this TED Talk and different interviews in 2017, I think, and what he actually did on the set. That's the story. that they're telling. But what's the evidence to back up that story? There is evidence in this complaint. There's a lot of evidence about the retaliation. There's evidence about text messages back and forth between Justin and his team and Justin's PR team about trying to sort of go against Blake in the media and social media and doing something that they call astroturfing. But there's not a lot of evidence in the complaint about the allegations, the sexual harassment. There's a promise that we will see it later, that there are people who are going to stand behind Blake and these allegations, and that we will see those later. But until then, there's not a lot of evidence to back up that story. Whereas on Justin's side, they attached every single thing you could possibly imagine. And I'm sure there's more. And as they go through discovery, there's going to be more to support it. But Justin's team has been very strong in laying out all of the evidence that support his story. And there are parts of Blake's stories that don't seem to be as well supported by the evidence so far. Now, Blake's contention in this complaint is that they've had threats, that different people who have said that they would be witnesses have been threatened. And that very well could be why they're reluctant to put these people's names and pieces of text messages and so forth out there. And that's a problem if that's what's going on, because you've got one side that's able and willing to put the evidence out there, and another side that is less able and less willing to do so. None of this will matter as much in front of a jury in the courtroom, because in the courtroom, there's such strong rules. Everything that's in these complaints isn't necessarily going to be evidence at the trial. The complaint most likely won't be evidence at the trial that the jury will actually see. For example, right now, this is a little bit of a segue, in the Charlie Javis case. Charlie Javis is a woman who is on trial as I speak. She allegedly defrauded JP Morgan Chase. She said that she had this big list of college students that was available because she had created this website to help college students with financial aid. JP Morgan says that that list was not what she said it was. The reason I bring her up is that during the course of the sale to JP Morgan, she had sent some WhatsApp messages referencing Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos case. The judge has already decided those WhatsApp messages are not relevant and the jury won't hear them. So a lot of these text messages that we're all reading as the jury of public opinion and thinking are such a big deal, the jury in the courtroom may never see. And that's where we go back to, what's the win here? What's the jury that you're really trying to influence? Is it the public or is it the jury in the courtroom? And if it's the public, then both sides need to really focus on who is the jury, what's their perspective, and how can you best speak to that perspective and tell stories and have evidence that back it up. This is true for you as well. When you're out there in your life advocating for what you want, get really clear on what you want. What is a win? Who can give it to you? Who is your jury? And how do they see the world? How do they see your story? How could they see it that you don't like? And how can you address it? Let me know in the comments if you want more, if you have questions. I know that this is a very emotional topic for many people. I know many people have a lot of opinions. This is not to get into the nuts and bolts of who's right or who's wrong. This is really about the art of advocating and how the two sides are doing it thus far. I hope that you are using these skills to advocate for yourself in your life. That is my hope from the videos I make, and subscribe for more like this. In the meantime, take good care.